Lay back and let this peaceful tale gently unfold as you drift into the Bible story of Deborah, the Judge. Beneath a quiet palm tree in ancient Israel, wisdom speaks softly, faith rises calmly, and God's guidance leads the way. Told slowly and gently for sleep, this calming bedtime reading invites you to rest, relax, and remain with the story until its final quiet moments. Long ago, in the land of Israel, there lived a woman named Deborah, whose life unfolded with quiet purpose and steady grace. She was both a prophetess and a judge, chosen by God to guide his people during a time when wisdom was deeply needed. Deborah did not rule from a palace or sit among loud crowds. Instead, her days moved gently beneath the open sky, where peace and discernment shaped her work. Deborah would sit beneath a palm tree, known among the people as the Palm of Deborah. It stood between Ramah and Bethel, in the hill country of Ephraim. The tree offered shade from the warm sun and a sense of calm that seemed to settle naturally around her. From this simple place, Deborah carried out her calling. The children of Israel would come up to her, one by one or in quiet groups, seeking judgment, guidance, and understanding. She listened carefully to each voice. Whether the concern was small or weighty, Deborah gave her full attention. Her manner was gentle, her words measured, and her presence steady. She did not rush decisions, nor did she speak with harshness. Instead, she weighed matters with patience, seeking truth and fairness, guided by the wisdom God placed within her. Those who came before her often left with lighter hearts, feeling seen, heard, and directed toward what was right. Deborah's wisdom was not born only of experience, but of her closeness to God. As a prophetess, she listened for his voice and spoke his words faithfully. Her guidance was shaped by trust in the Lord, and this trust flowed naturally into her judgments. She reminded the people that God had not forgotten them, even during seasons of difficulty. Her words carried reassurance, not fear, and confidence, not doubt. The land around her reflected the rhythm of her life. The hills rose quietly in the distance, olive trees stood firm in the breeze, and paths worn smooth by travellers led toward her place beneath the palm. Each day unfolded calmly, marked by conversation, reflection, and prayer. Deborah's role did not require noise or force. It required clarity, faith, and the courage to stand in obedience to God's calling. In a time when many felt uncertain, Deborah offered stability. She did not seek power for herself, nor did she elevate her position above others. Instead, she served. Her authority came from her faithfulness and from the respect she earned through wisdom and compassion. Men and women alike trusted her, knowing her judgments were shaped by righteousness rather than pride. Deborah's calm strength showed that leadership could be gentle and firm at the same time. She understood that guiding others required humility and patience. When disputes arose, she sought peace. When confusion lingered, she offered clarity. When fear stirred in the hearts of the people, she reminded them of the God who had led Israel before and would continue to lead them still. As the sun moved slowly across the sky and shadows shifted beneath the palm tree, Deborah remained steady in her place. Her presence became a familiar comfort, like a landmark that assured travelers they were on the right path. Children grew up hearing of her wisdom, and elders spoke of her discernment with quiet respect. Deborah's life teaches that greatness does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits patiently beneath a tree, listening, guiding, and trusting in God's timing. Her days were woven with faith, her words carried peace, and her calling unfolded gently, one moment at a time, as Israel found guidance through the wisdom God placed within her. In those days, the land itself seemed to wait for direction. Israel stretched across rolling hills and wide valleys, its villages resting quietly among olive groves and fields of grain. Stone houses stood close together, built for shelter and community, while narrow paths wound gently between homes, wells, and fields. At dawn, soft light touched the hills, and in the evenings, the land settled into stillness beneath the sky. Yet beneath this calm surface, the people carried a quiet heaviness. For many years, Israel had lived under the rule of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned from the city of Hazor. His power reached far across the land, and his commander, Sisera, commanded a strong army with iron chariots. These chariots were symbols of strength and control, and they moved through the valleys with weight and authority. Because of this, many in Israel lived cautiously, measuring each step and each journey. The villages were still, but not empty. Life continued in small, careful rhythms. Farmers tended their fields when they could, working the soil with patience and hope. Shepherds guided their flocks along familiar slopes, listening closely to the sounds around them. Women drew water from wells in the early hours, when the day was cool and quiet. Children stayed close to home, learning the patterns of daily life within the safety of their surroundings. Some roads were no longer traveled as they once had been. Wide highways that had connected towns lay quiet, and travelers chose smaller paths instead. The people moved gently through the land, aware of the power that overshadowed them. There was no constant noise of conflict, yet the presence of control lingered like a distant cloud. It shaped decisions, slowed movement, and caused hearts to long for peace and freedom. Despite this, the land retained its beauty. Hills rose softly against the horizon, dotted with trees and grazing animals. Fields of barley and wheat shifted with the breeze, their steady motion offering comfort. Springs flowed quietly, providing water that sustained life even in difficult times. The earth itself seemed faithful, continuing its cycles of growth and rest. The people remembered the stories of their past. They remembered how God had led them through the wilderness and brought them into this land. These memories lived quietly in their hearts, offering hope even when circumstances felt heavy. In the evenings, families gathered close, sharing simple meals and familiar words. Lamps flickered softly, casting warm light against stone walls as voices lowered and the day came to rest. There was a shared sense that guidance was needed, not spoken loudly, but felt deeply. The people longed for clarity, for assurance that God was still near and still attentive. They desired wisdom to navigate their days and courage to face what lay ahead. This longing moved gently through the land, from village to village, from field to field. In the hills of Ephraim and beyond, life continued with quiet perseverance. Each morning brought renewed effort, each night brought reflection. The land waited patiently, holding the footsteps of its people and the echoes of their prayers. In this time of stillness and restraint, Israel stood ready for direction, prepared for wisdom to rise and light to return to paths that had grown quiet. As the days passed, the paths that led toward the palm tree became familiar to many. From nearby villages and distant hills, people made their way slowly, often in the early hours when the air was cool and the land was quiet. They came not in haste, but with careful steps and thoughtful hearts, drawn by the steady wisdom that awaited them. Some arrived with questions about land and boundaries, others with concerns about family or promises that needed guidance. Deborah welcomed each one with the same calm attention. She did not hurry their words or interrupt their thoughts. Instead, she listened, allowing silence to settle when needed, giving space for clarity to rise. Her presence carried a quiet assurance that truth could be found through patience. Deborah's judgments were spoken plainly and gently. She chose her words with care, seeking fairness rather than favor. Her guidance did not rest on her own strength, but on the wisdom given to her by God. When she spoke, her voice was steady, and her words brought understanding rather than confusion. Many left with a sense of peace, feeling guided toward what was right and just. Those who waited their turn sat nearby beneath the palm tree, resting in its shade. The sound of leaves moving softly in the breeze accompanied the low murmur of conversation. There was no tension in this place, only a shared respect for the moment and for the woman who served faithfully there. Even disagreements seemed to lose their sharpness as they were brought into the calm space Deborah created. Deborah's patience was known throughout the land. She never turned anyone away because of weariness or inconvenience. Whether the matter was simple or complex, she gave it the same careful attention. Her clarity helped untangle confusion, and her thoughtful manner encouraged honesty. People spoke openly before her, trusting that their words would be received with understanding. She often reminded those who came to her that wisdom begins with listening. Her guidance pointed beyond herself, directing hearts back toward God's ways. In doing so, she strengthened the people quietly, helping them find steadiness within their own lives. Her leadership did not command through force, but through example. As the sun moved higher or drifted lower in the sky, Deborah remained at her place, grounded and attentive. Her steady presence became a source of calm in uncertain times. Without raising her voice or seeking attention, she shaped the lives of many through gentle counsel and faithful judgment. In this simple setting beneath the palm tree, Deborah's quiet leadership flowed naturally, offering clarity where there had been uncertainty and peace where there had been unease. The land, still waiting for guidance, found comfort in the wisdom that continued to be shared, one conversation at a time. One day, among those who came seeking counsel, there arrived a man whose presence carried a different weight. His name was Barak, son of Abinoam, a commander from Kadesh in Naphtali. His steps were measured as he approached, his expression thoughtful rather than troubled. He had come with purpose, guided by respect for the wisdom that dwelled beneath the palm tree. Barak did not speak quickly. When he addressed Deborah, his words were calm and deliberate. He understood her calling and recognized the authority God had placed upon her. There was no challenge in his manner, only attentiveness. He listened closely as she spoke, receiving her words with care, as one who knew the importance of wise counsel. The land around them remained still. The palm leaves shifted softly overhead, and the air carried a quiet sense of readiness. Though Barak was a man familiar with command and responsibility, he did not rely on his own strength alone. He sought guidance, knowing that clarity must come before action. His presence reflected both discipline and humility. Deborah spoke to Barak with the same steady calm she offered to all who came before her. Her words carried direction, rooted in the message God had given her. She spoke of a task that would require courage and obedience, yet her tone remained composed, free of urgency or fear. The weight of her words rested not in volume, but in certainty. Barak received her counsel with seriousness. He did not argue or hesitate, yet there was a quiet awareness of the challenge ahead. Preparation, he understood, would come in careful steps. Nothing was rushed. The moment was marked by attentiveness rather than alarm, by trust rather than doubt. Around them, life continued in its gentle rhythm. Travelers passed at a distance, fields lay open beneath the sky, and the hills stood unmoved. In this calm setting, a call to action was spoken softly, shaped by wisdom and faith. It did not disturb the peace, but settled into it, as though the land itself were listening. Barak remained for a time, absorbing the guidance he had received. His respect for Deborah was clear, as was his readiness to follow the direction given. When he departed, he did so with a steady pace, carrying with him words that would soon shape what lay ahead, while the palm tree stood quietly, bearing witness to another moment of faithful counsel. The words Deborah had spoken did not fade once Barak had gone. They settled with quiet strength, shaped by the message the Lord had placed within her. When the time came for her guidance to be fully spoken, she shared it with clarity and calm, not as one uncertain, but as one who trusted deeply in God's direction. She spoke of the Lord's command with gentleness, explaining that Barak was to gather men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. 10,000 were to be called, not with haste or fear, but with steady purpose. They were to go up to Mount Tabor, a place that rose quietly above the surrounding land. From its slopes, the valleys could be seen stretching wide and open, shaped by rivers and pathways known well to those who lived nearby. Deborah described how the Lord himself would guide events. Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, would be drawn toward the river Kishon with his chariots and his forces. This movement would not be the result of human strength alone, but of God's unseen hand directing the course of the day. The river, the land, and the timing would all work together according to his will. Her voice remained steady as she spoke, offering reassurance rather than urgency. She did not speak of numbers or power in a way that stirred anxiety. Instead, she reminded Barak that the victory would come from obedience and trust. The outcome did not rest on human ability, but on faithfulness to what God had commanded. Deborah's words carried encouragement. She did not speak as one distant from the task, but as one fully present in it. Her guidance was careful and thoughtful, showing a path that was clear without being rushed. She spoke of courage as something quiet and steady, rooted in confidence that God would go before them. There was wisdom in the way she spoke of preparation. The gathering of the men was to be orderly, the movement toward Mount Tabor deliberate. Nothing was to be forced. Each step would come in its proper time. The plan unfolded calmly, like a path revealed one section at a time, easy to follow when walked with patience. Deborah reminded Barak that the Lord had already gone ahead of him. These words were not spoken loudly, yet they carried great strength. They offered assurance that he would not be alone in what lay ahead. The presence of God was not distant or uncertain. It was near, guiding, and faithful. As she spoke, there was no sign of doubt in her manner. Her confidence did not come from bold display, but from deep trust. She believed fully in the word she had received, and this belief flowed naturally into her guidance. It was this calm certainty that gave the plan its strength. The land itself seemed ready to receive these words. Hills stood firm, the river continued its steady course, and the air remained still. The strategy did not disturb the peace of the moment. Instead, it fit within it, shaped by the same quiet order that governed the natural world around them. Deborah's guidance rested on faith, patience, and wisdom. Each part of the plan reflected trust in God's timing and purpose. Courage was not presented as force, but as obedience. Strength was not found in noise, but in steady resolve. And within this calm direction, the path toward what was to come was set gently into place. The call went out across the northern hills, carried quietly from village to village. Men of Naphtali and Zebulun heard the summons and responded without haste. They came as dawn lightened the sky, moving along familiar paths that wound through fields and along gentle slopes. Their steps were steady, guided by purpose rather than urgency. As they gathered, the land remained calm. Tents were raised carefully, cloth drawn tight and secured with patient hands. The soft sound of fabric settling in the breeze blended with the low murmur of voices. There was no shouting, no clamour. Each movement was deliberate, shaped by quiet understanding of what was being prepared. Horses stood nearby, shifting their weight and breathing slowly. Leather creaked softly as saddles were adjusted and reins checked. The animals seemed to sense the stillness of the moment, responding calmly to the touch and voice of those who tended them. Nearby, footsteps pressed gently into the earth, leaving marks that would soon fade back into the soil. The men arranged their belongings with care. Cloaks were folded, provisions set aside, and simple tools placed within easy reach. Some sat briefly on the ground, resting in the shade while they waited. Others stood in small groups, speaking in low tones, sharing quiet words that carried reassurance rather than concern. Mount Tabor rose nearby, its slopes steady and watchful. It stood as a place of gathering, offering a wide view of the land below. The mountain did not demand attention, yet its presence was constant, grounding those who assembled near it. The air around it felt open and still, holding the calm of the moment. There was a sense of readiness that moved gently among the men, not the sharp edge of tension, but a settled awareness of purpose. Each person understood his place within what was being formed. They did not rush to take position, nor did they linger in uncertainty. Preparation unfolded naturally, step by step. The sound of water being poured into containers echoed softly. Firewood was stacked neatly, and small fires were kindled with care, their flames low and steady. The faint scent of smoke drifted upward, thin and gentle, disappearing into the open sky. Throughout the gathering, there was order without command. The men responded to guidance that had been clearly given, trusting in the direction they had received. Their movements reflected discipline shaped by patience. Even as more arrived, the atmosphere remained composed and balanced. As daylight stretched across the land, the assembled forces rested within the quiet of preparation. The hills, the mountain, and the open space around them held the moment in stillness. Everything was in place, not through force or noise, but through calm readiness shaped by faith and careful obedience. The morning air carried a soft weight as the distant movements of another force began to make themselves known. From beyond the hills and along winding roads, a host of men began their approach, moving quietly yet with unmistakable presence. It was Sisera's army, the forces of Jabin, making their way toward the valleys and the mountains. Though their approach was deliberate, it was not filled with loud clamoring or urgent shouts. Instead, there was a measured rhythm in their steps, the quiet coordination of many moving together, a presence that hinted at challenge without alarming the stillness of the land. The sunlight stretched across the hills, brushing against the blades of grass and the trees that lined the distant paths. Horses shifted their weight softly, leather and harness creaking in gentle waves. The riders guided them with calm hands, adjusting reins and stirrups, attending to the animals as carefully as they did to their own footing. From afar, one could hear the soft sound of iron on wheels, the subtle clinking of chains and harnesses, blending with the wind as it moved through the valleys. The soldiers themselves walked in quiet order. Each step seemed mindful, not hurried, each glance purposeful. They carried their tools and equipment with care, ensuring that nothing was forgotten or misplaced. The sun rose higher, warming the earth beneath their feet, and their shadows moved across the rolling hills like a slow, shifting tapestry. It was a sight that suggested power without need for noise, a reminder of the strength that could move through the land with quiet precision. Sisera's presence was felt rather than announced. He moved with the confidence of experience, knowing the ways of the terrain, the tendencies of his soldiers, and the timing of his advance. Yet there was no boast in his demeanor, no rush or recklessness. Even his iron chariots, symbols of authority and control, moved carefully along the softer paths where the land would allow them passage. The wheels pressed into the soil with deliberate weight, leaving faint impressions that would remain for hours before the wind and sun erased them. The valley below stretched wide, a gentle mixture of fields, rivers, and scattered villages. From the higher hills, one could see the approach of this army as a slow wave of movement, rolling through the folds of the land. There was anticipation in the air, a sense of something important about to unfold, yet it did not disturb the quiet rhythm of nature. Birds moved along their usual paths, grazing animals lifted their heads briefly, and the wind carried scents of earth, grass, and distant water. Along the way, small pauses marked their progress. Horses drank quietly at streams, soldiers adjusted their cloaks, and murmurs passed from one to another, low and unhurried. The landscape seemed to accommodate them, offering space to move and shadows to rest beneath. Even the light seemed softer, as if holding them in a reflective calm that allowed each person to maintain awareness without hurry. Despite the silent weight of their approach, there was a sense of balance in the land. The hills did not tremble, the fields did not shake. Instead, The rhythm of their movement harmonized with the natural pulse of the world around them. Each step was mirrored by the sway of the trees, each sound of hooves by the trickle of streams. The mountains and valleys seemed to witness their advance without judgment, holding the moment in gentle stillness even as purpose moved through it. There was a subtle tension that threaded through the air, though it was not sharp or jarring. It existed in the awareness of a force drawing closer, in the recognition of preparation that had already been set into motion beneath Mount Tabor. The men who had gathered there had felt this quiet tension, the knowledge that movement was coming from the hills beyond, yet there was no panic, only attentive watchfulness. Shadows shifted slowly across the slopes, lengthening and shortening with the rising sun, marking time in a gentle cadence. As Sisera's army moved closer, the light of the morning played across their figures. The chariots caught it softly, glinting for brief moments, while the soldiers' cloaks moved with a measured grace. There was an order in their progress, a pattern that could be seen from the hills, a sense that every action had been thought through and every step taken in alignment with the purpose of the day. No one hurried. No one faltered. The approach itself seemed like a reflection of careful design. For those who watched from above, the army's movement was both a reminder of challenge and a reassurance of control. Though they were many and well-equipped, their presence did not overwhelm the land. Instead, it became part of it, moving through familiar paths, responding to the contours of valleys and hills, and blending with the natural rhythm of the morning. There was space to observe, to notice the precision and the patience that carried them along. In the quiet of the hills, the presence of this army could be felt in the mind and in the senses, a calm anticipation that required attention but not fear. The wind carried the faint sounds of their advance, the earth held the impressions of their passage, and the sun marked the progress of the day. Everything moved together, natural and deliberate, creating a gentle tension that hinted at what was to come without ever breaking the serenity of the moment. The approach of Sisera's forces unfolded slowly, each element in balance with the next. The rhythm of horses, wheels, and footsteps mingled with the soft murmurs of the land. It was a movement that spoke of order, careful planning, and the quiet weight of responsibility. The valleys and hills held the moment in reflective stillness, offering space for the land and the people within it to prepare for what lay ahead. In this gentle unfolding, anticipation lived not in haste or fear, but in awareness, patience, and measured expectation. Deborah stood beneath the familiar palm tree, the soft breeze moving through its leaves as the people gathered near the slopes of Mount Tabor. Her presence carried the quiet assurance of someone who knew the voice of God and trusted it fully. She spoke slowly and deliberately, letting her words settle gently among those who had come to hear her counsel. Her voice held a calm confidence that reached beyond mere encouragement. She reminded Barak and the men that their strength did not lie only in their arms or numbers, but in obedience to God's guidance. Her tone was steady, measured, and warm, offering a sense of clarity that eased the tension that naturally rose when preparation for action began. Each word was placed with care, carrying weight without sharpness, urging the people to trust in what had already been made certain by divine instruction. Deborah's eyes moved across the gathering, meeting those of each man with quiet assurance. She spoke of courage, not as a loud or forceful command, but as a quality that rose gently from faith. Courage, she explained, was found in listening to God, in following His direction without hesitation, and in trusting that what was right would be made strong. Her voice did not seek to stir alarm or fear, but to inspire a settled confidence that could take root deep within their hearts. She reminded them that God had seen their circumstances and had not abandoned them. The oppression of Jabin and the presence of Sisera were not hidden from his view, and the path laid before them was guided by his wisdom. Deborah's words carried a quiet, unwavering certainty, showing that true power often rests in patience, trust, and careful attention to God's will. Barak felt the weight of her confidence settle like a gentle hand upon his shoulders. The men around him listened with steady focus, absorbing the guidance that came not in haste or alarm, but in a soft rhythm that mirrored the quiet strength of the land itself. Each phrase from Deborah seemed to carry the clarity of purpose, illuminating what needed to be done and instilling faith in the course set before them. Deborah encouraged them to act together, not in reckless motion, but in measured steps. She spoke of unity and shared purpose, of looking to one another for support while keeping attention on the direction given by God. Her language was reflective and steady, allowing the people to feel grounded and capable even as they faced the magnitude of the task. She reminded them that their obedience was itself a source of strength. By following God's direction and trusting in His guidance, their hearts could remain calm even amid the presence of a larger force. Deborah's words were soft yet compelling, carrying both reassurance and quiet authority. The men felt their resolve deepen with each moment, confidence growing like a steady flame nurtured in the still air. There was no call to aggression in her voice, no urging to strike out with haste. Instead, she spoke of discernment and awareness, of seeing the opportunities that would arise and moving with God's timing. Her encouragement focused on inner courage, the ability to remain steadfast, and the understanding that faith was the foundation of true leadership. Even the youngest among the men found their thoughts settling into the rhythm of her words. Each syllable seemed to blend with the whisper of the wind through the olive trees and the soft rustle of grass on the slopes. The guidance she offered was not loud or hurried. It carried a quiet authority that spoke directly to their hearts, cultivating calm determination that did not rely on fear or force. Barak felt a subtle shift within himself. The tension that had clung to his mind loosened, replaced by a clear sense of purpose. Deborah's words reminded him that strength is often invisible, residing in trust, patience, and obedience. He understood that this inner steadiness would guide him and the men as much as any outward preparation. Her inspiration did not end with spoken instruction. The very way she stood, grounded and attentive beneath the palm tree, embodied what she had said. She radiated calm confidence, showing that true leadership is quiet, observant, and rooted in faith. The people around her absorbed this presence, feeling steadier and more assured, their hearts aligned with the purpose that had been laid before them. In the soft morning light, her encouragement became a gentle current moving through the gathered group. It carried faith, resolve, and clarity, inviting each person to trust not only in the plan but in themselves, guided by God's wisdom and Deborah's steady hand. Every word, every pause, and every gesture was deliberate, cultivating confidence, calm, and readiness, allowing courage to take root gently and grow from within. The quiet inspiration Deborah offered flowed through the air, filling the space with a serene strength. It was a confidence that did not demand attention but invited it naturally, strengthening hearts through assurance and trust. In that moment, The people were not simply preparing for what lay ahead. They were being shaped by the steady presence of a woman whose faith and clarity had become a beacon of calm, courage, and trust in God's guidance. From the gentle rise of the hills, the movements of the day could be seen as a soft unfolding of purpose across the land. The valley stretched below, painted in shades of gold and green under the warmth of the sun. Fields swayed lightly in the breeze, and rivers reflected the light in quiet ripples, tracing their way along familiar courses. From this distant view, the events of the morning unfolded not as chaos, but as a rhythm shaped by intention and guidance. The slopes of Mount Tabor held the men gathered there, their shapes blending with the earth, their motions deliberate and calm. They moved with measured steps, keeping pace with one another, attentive to the commands given in gentle tones. From above, the scene resembled the careful patterns of nature itself, like the flow of water through the valley or the drifting of clouds across the sky. There was energy, yet it was contained within the steady order of preparation and mindful movement. In the distance, the approach of Sisera's forces could be seen as well. From this perspective, the iron chariots and the lines of soldiers appeared as threads weaving through the valleys, moving with purpose yet without hurry. The earth beneath their feet carried their passage silently, the sounds of hooves and wheels blending with the natural chorus of the land. The hills and trees observed without disturbance, holding the unfolding events in quiet balance. The wind played over the landscape, shifting the tall grasses and bending the branches of olive and oak trees. It carried faint scents of the river, of earth warmed by the sun, and of the soft dust that rose from the roads with each step. Each element of the land seemed attuned to the day's movements, flowing around the presence of men as though the valley itself were a witness to the careful unfolding of what had been set in motion. From this vantage point, it was clear that the battle was guided by more than mere numbers. It was shaped by timing, by observation, and by patience. The patterns of movement across the slopes reflected coordination and calm rather than haste or force. Each advance, each pause, fit into a larger design, one that moved naturally with the curves of the hills and the course of the rivers. The sunlight shifted slowly, illuminating different areas of the valley with gentle warmth. Shadows lengthened along the hillsides, brushing across fields and roads, giving depth to the landscape. These changes in light mirrored the unfolding rhythm of the day, marking the progress of both sides in a subtle, quiet manner. The distant birds, moving from tree to tree, added to the sense of serene observation, their soft calls weaving into the ambient sounds of motion. Even the movement of the chariots could be seen from this height as part of a larger, flowing pattern. Wheels turned with purpose, yet without harsh noise, rolling along paths that followed the natural contours of the land. The men guided them with calm hands, ensuring steady motion rather than forceful speed. From above, the scene resembled the slow movement of rivers, threading through the earth with quiet determination. The men from Israel, gathered near Mount Tabor, mirrored this quiet rhythm. Their steps were measured, their formations gentle in their order, yet filled with readiness. Each motion seemed connected to the land, as if the hills and valleys themselves supported the careful unfolding of the day. There was harmony in their movements, a reflection of the calm leadership that had guided them, and a trust that the moment would be met with patience and clarity. Clouds drifted slowly across the sky, shifting the light and casting soft, moving shadows across the hills and fields. The sun, steady in its arc, illuminated the peaks and valleys in a serene cadence. Every element of the natural world seemed aligned with the movements below, each part of the landscape participating quietly in the unfolding of events. From this distance, there was no sense of panic or sudden alarm. Instead, there was a calm awareness of the forces at work, both seen and unseen. The unfolding of the day, the careful steps of the men, the motion of the chariots, and the stillness of the hills all came together as part of a larger, measured pattern. The battle, though present, existed as a gentle rhythm across the land rather than as a clash of chaos. Rivers glinted softly in the sunlight, reflecting moments of movement as they traced paths through fields and valleys. Hills, trees, and stone outcrops framed the scene in stability, providing a steady backdrop to the unfolding purpose. The coordination of forces mirrored the quiet order of the natural world, emphasizing strategy, timing, and careful guidance rather than haste. In this distant, reflective view, courage and faith seemed to weave together seamlessly. The men moved with resolve, guided by leadership and divine instruction, while the land held its steady watch. Each step, each pause, and each gentle advance became part of a greater pattern, a quiet unfolding that could be seen in harmony with the rhythm of the hills, rivers, and sky. The valley, the slopes, and the distant peaks contained the unfolding day with a sense of serenity. Even in the presence of challenge, the natural elements, the careful movement of the men, and the guidance of those who led created a scene that was calm, ordered, and reflective. In this perspective, the events of the morning were not only observed, but understood as part of a larger, peaceful design that carried through the land with quiet purpose. In a modest tent among the gentle hills, there lived a woman named Jael, known for her quiet wisdom and careful mind. Her home was simple, shaded by trees and set apart from the busier paths of the valley. Life there moved slowly, shaped by the rhythm of daily chores, tending to her household, and listening to the subtle sounds of the land. Her presence carried a calm attentiveness, a mind that observed and understood without haste. Jael's courage was not the kind that sought recognition. It was measured, thoughtful, and rooted in discernment. She noticed the comings and goings of the world around her, aware of the tensions that had touched the villages and the movements of men travelling through the hills. Yet she did not act impulsively or loudly. Her bravery took shape in careful choices, guided by a mind attuned to both opportunity and responsibility. When Sisera came to her tent, Jael welcomed him with steady calm. She offered him shelter and rest, speaking in soft tones that reflected hospitality and attentiveness. There was no sharpness in her manner, no hurried words, only a composed presence that put the moment into quiet order. She moved with grace and thoughtfulness, guiding her guest gently while maintaining awareness of the circumstances beyond her doors. Her actions revealed strength through consideration rather than force. Each motion was deliberate, offering a place to sit, providing food and drink, adjusting the coverings in the tent with care. She watched closely without alarm, her mind attuned to the unfolding day and the larger pattern that had been set in motion across the hills and valleys. Courage, in her hands, was expressed as quiet mastery of choice, a steady awareness of what was right and necessary. Jael's wisdom lay in her understanding of timing and discernment. She did not move too soon, nor did she delay unnecessarily. Her judgment was guided by clarity, rooted in faith and a calm trust that the outcomes of careful decisions are often stronger than hurried action. She embodied the balance of presence and foresight, showing that bravery can live quietly in the mind and heart, shaping events with thoughtful attention. The tent around her seemed to reflect her steadiness. Shadows moved slowly across the walls as the sun passed overhead. The soft rustle of cloth and the faint creaking of wooden beams marked the gentle rhythm of life within. Outside, the hills and fields continued their quiet cycles, untouched by the urgent movements elsewhere. Within this calm setting, Jael's courage could take form, measured and composed, rising naturally from her understanding of what was needed. Her hospitality was deliberate yet gentle. Each word spoken to Sisera carried a tone of care and composure. Each gesture showed attentiveness without haste. In her quiet actions, she offered both safety and guidance, creating a space where awareness and careful judgment shaped the moment. This was bravery expressed not through outward force, but through thoughtful presence, a steady hand and mind meeting the demands of the day. Even small details mattered to Jael. The way she placed a rug, the manner in which she handed water, the soft guidance she gave, all of it reflected discernment and careful attention. Each choice, though seemingly ordinary, was part of a larger pattern of courage and wisdom. She embodied the understanding that true bravery often hides in simplicity and steadiness, moving softly yet decisively when the moment calls for it. Her thoughts were attentive, considering both the immediate moment and the broader path that had led to it. She was aware of the movements across the hills, of the men gathered near Mount Tabor, and of the larger unfolding that connected her small tent to the wider pattern of events. In this awareness, her courage found form, silent, measured, and guided by insight rather than impulse. Jael's presence became a gentle force in the day's unfolding. She acted without alarm, without haste, yet with purposeful care. The choices she made reflected inner strength, a mind attentive to timing and consequence. Even in moments that could have been chaotic, her steady composure allowed events to be shaped thoughtfully, demonstrating that bravery need not shout, but can move quietly and decisively within the rhythm of the world. In this quiet, sunlit tent, Jael's courage shone through the stillness of her actions. It was not loud or boastful, but calm and deliberate, a reflection of wisdom, patience, and understanding. Through her careful choices, the land and the unfolding day were met with clarity and steadiness, showing that the most profound strength often rises in silence and thoughtfulness, guiding what happens in ways that honor both discernment and faith. After the quiet courage of that day had carried its course, Deborah lifted her voice in song beneath the palm tree, her words flowing softly like a gentle river over the hills. The melody moved slowly, each phrase a reflection of gratitude, faith, and the quiet triumph that comes when hearts follow God's guidance. The sound seemed to ripple outward, touching the valleys, the trees, and the open fields, settling softly over the land. Her song spoke first of the Lord, whose presence had guided the people through uncertainty, and whose wisdom had shaped the day's unfolding. The words carried warmth and calm assurance, reminding all who listened that strength comes not from force alone, but from trust and faith. Each note and pause seemed deliberate, like the gentle movement of sunlight across the hills, illuminating the spirit with quiet understanding. She sang of the courage of the people, their steady hearts, and the faithful steps of Barak and the men from Naphtali and Zebulun. The melody moved like a soft breeze, rising and falling with gentle grace. Her words painted images of hills, rivers, and fields that had witnessed careful obedience and quiet courage. There was joy in her song, yet it was calm, reflective, and full of gentle warmth. Deborah's voice wove the story of the day with imagery of the natural world. Streams sparkled like threads of silver, mountains stood firm as witnesses, and the sun cast its steady light over all. The rhythm of the song mirrored the steady steps of those who had followed guidance, blending the human story with the quiet pulse of the earth. The melody carried not just events, but the sense of peace that comes from walking faithfully in harmony with God's plan. The song acknowledged Jael's thoughtful bravery, the stillness and wisdom that shaped the outcome. Deborah's words described courage not in loud or forceful acts, but in measured, careful decisions that honored responsibility and faith. Each syllable lingered softly, highlighting how strength can shine quietly, like a calm river reflecting light in subtle brilliance. In gentle verses, she recalled the unity of the people, the trust that bound them together, and the harmony that had been found even in moments of tension. The song moved like a soft current, carrying gratitude through every pause and phrase. It celebrated victories, small and great, not with boastfulness, but with reflective joy that warmed the heart. Deborah's lyrics painted the land itself in their imagery. Olive trees swayed with the rhythm, the hills rolled quietly beneath the sun, and rivers traced their familiar courses as if dancing softly to the melody. Birds and creatures of the fields seemed to listen in stillness, blending their natural rhythms with the gentle music, creating a chorus that was both celebratory and serene. Her voice held both reflection and hope. Each note carried a reminder that courage rooted in faith endures beyond the moment. The song was not hurried, nor did it demand attention, yet it commanded a presence in the quiet air, a soothing recognition of what had been achieved through careful obedience and trust. Deborah's words invited calm contemplation. She spoke of lessons learned, of the quiet victories that arise when hearts follow God, and of the peace that comes from alignment with divine guidance. Her song moved slowly, each phrase a soft thread woven into the tapestry of the day, reminding the land and the people of the gentle power of faith and steady courage. The song flowed like a lullaby for the hills and valleys. Its lyrics celebrated victory and unity, but also invited reflection, turning the day's events into a melody of understanding and gratitude. Each repetition was subtle, each rise and fall of the voice deliberate, carrying calm energy and leaving space for contemplation and rest. Deborah's song lingered in the open air, touching the slopes, the rivers, and the people who had gathered. It was an expression of serene joy, quiet celebration, and deep reflection. The melody honored the day's journey, the courage shown, and the faithful steps taken under God's guidance, transforming the events into music that comforted, inspired, and settled the spirit. Through the soft, lyrical words, the land and the people felt the harmony of what had occurred. The song's gentle cadence mirrored the rhythms of nature and the steady hearts of those who had acted with faith. It was a celebration that did not demand excitement but invited the peace of understanding, a reflection that wrapped the day in calm and gentle gratitude, carrying the story into a quiet, restful embrace. The story of Deborah and those who followed her holds gentle lessons that settle quietly in the heart. Courage is not always bold or loud, but often calm and measured, rising softly from trust in God's guidance. It is the kind of courage that moves steadily, that listens and observes before taking careful steps, and that finds strength in faith rather than in force. Trust, too, shows its gentle power. When hearts remain open to God's direction, the path becomes clear even amid uncertainty. Deborah's quiet confidence reminds that guidance often comes through patience and careful attention, and that following it faithfully brings peace and assurance. There is comfort in knowing that courage paired with trust can shape outcomes with care, and that steady resolve guided by wisdom can bring clarity where confusion might otherwise linger. Wisdom, as Deborah shared, is found in discernment and thoughtfulness. It is reflected in the steady advice offered to Barak, in the careful preparation of the people, and in the measured choices of Jael. True wisdom moves softly, observing the whole before acting, and considers both timing and consequence. It does not rush, it does not seek attention, yet it carries a strength that influences everything around it. The story also shows the quiet strength that comes from service to others. Deborah's leadership was not about seeking glory, but about guiding her people with calm presence and care. Barak followed not out of fear, but out of respect for her wisdom. Jael acted with thoughtfulness to protect and fulfill a higher purpose. Strength expressed through service is steady, reflective, and deeply rooted in responsibility and care for those around us. These virtues, courage, trust, wisdom, and service, invite gentle reflection. They encourage the mind to consider how calm presence, steady guidance, and faithful action can shape the world without noise or haste. In quiet contemplation, it becomes clear that the most profound power is often the one that moves gently, shaping hearts, decisions, and events through patience and faith. The story whispers that leadership and bravery are not always displayed with great fanfare. They can live in quiet moments, in deliberate choices, and in the calm trust that the right path will reveal itself. When courage is paired with faith, wisdom, and care for others, it leaves a lasting impression, not through force, but through steady, thoughtful action that touches lives softly and enduringly. The hills and valleys, touched by the events of the day, now rested under the gentle light of the evening. The soft breeze carried a sense of calm over the fields and trees, and the land itself seemed to settle into quiet reflection. In this stillness, the story of Deborah and those who followed her leaves a gentle impression of courage, trust, and faith, echoing softly through the heart. There is a serenity in knowing that strength can be quiet, that leadership can be calm, and that acts of wisdom and careful choice leave a lasting mark. The bravery of Barak, the discernment of Jael, and the steadfast guidance of Deborah all show that the truest power grows slowly, rooted in faith and measured action. It is a presence that supports, encourages, and inspires, offering a model for patience and reflection in every gentle step of life. As this peaceful moment settles, there is space to feel safe and at ease. The story invites contemplation of the virtues quietly displayed, the courage that rises from trust, the wisdom that guides without haste, and the strength that serves others. In this calm, the heart can rest with gratitude for the gentle lessons woven throughout the day's events. Each example leaves a soft imprint, a reminder that quiet faith and steady determination have the power to shape the world in meaningful ways. The soft rhythms of nature around the hills mirror this tranquility. The whisper of the wind through the trees, the distant murmur of rivers, and the steady outline of the mountains offer a backdrop of peace, blending with the reflections of the day. It is a harmony that encourages stillness, inviting the mind to rest, the spirit to feel calm, and the soul to carry the lessons of courage and faith gently forward. In this gentle pause, there is also a quiet invitation. Share these reflections with others, whether through conversation, thoughtful notes, or simply by passing along the story to bring calm and inspiration. Consider leaving a comment to share what moved your heart, subscribing to continue exploring such peaceful stories, or sharing the calm lessons with those who may need a quiet reminder of faith, courage, and wisdom. May the calm presence of the story remain, guiding thoughts into reflection and hearts into serenity. Let the gentle examples of Deborah, Barak, and Jael inspire quiet confidence, trust, and thoughtful courage, holding the day's lessons in the mind and heart. The land rests, the hills breathe softly, and the spirit finds ease, carrying the story's gentle light into the quiet of the night.